Have you ever wondered what the final report for a massive ancient construction project would look like? I mean, no budget overruns, no last-minute changes, just a perfect final accounting of every single piece. Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today, the final inventory for the Tabernacle, straight out of the book of Exodus.
And right from the get-go, the text itself frames this whole thing as an official audit. This isn't just a story, it's a ledger, a super detailed accounting of this sacred project. It was all handled by the Levites, under the watchful eye of Moses. So yeah, it really sets the stage for an incredible level of detail. All right, so our audit begins in the Tabernacle's outer court, and we're starting with its most obvious feature, the massive altar of burnt offering. This thing was the centerpiece, and it was forged almost entirely from bronze. At its heart, it was made of shittim wood, which was likely a type of acacia, but it was completely covered in a layer of bronze. And the dimensions are super precise, 5 cubits by 5 cubits. Now, a cubit's about the length from your elbow to your fingertip, so we're talking about a 7.5-foot square. It was a really powerful, symmetrical centerpiece for that whole courtyard.
And of course, you can't have an altar without the right gear. Every single tool, from the pots they used for ashes to the flesh hooks for the offerings, was made of the exact same durable material, bronze. You see this consistency, and it just screams that this was a place for functional, heavy-duty work.
Right next to the altar stood the laver. This was a big basin for the priest's ritual washing. But the story of where the metal came from, well, that's what makes this thing so remarkable.
Okay, get this. This detail is incredible. The bronze for the sacred basin wasn't just part of some general offering. No, it was made by melting down the polished bronze mirrors that were donated by the women who served at the entrance. It's just this powerful symbol of sacrificing personal vanity for the sanctity of the entire community.
So what held this whole sacred space together? Well, it was a massive but portable perimeter wall. The whole thing was assembled from fine linen, super sturdy pillars, and of course, precious metals. And just to give you a sense of the scale here, the longest sides of the courtyard were 100 cubits. Again, if a cubit is about 1.5 feet, we are talking about a 150-foot-long enclosure. This was no small tent, that's for sure. The precision is just amazing. The north and south walls were perfect mirror images of each other. Each one had 20 pillars set in these heavy bronze sockets, and they held up linen curtains with hooks and connecting rods made of pure silver.
And the shorter walls on the west and east, they were exactly half that length, 50 cubits each. This created a perfectly proportioned 2-to-1 rectangle, a huge sacred space measuring about 150 by 75 feet.
Now, the main entrance was on the east side, and it was definitely the most decorative part of the whole exterior. You had these 15-cubit panels of linen on either side of the gate itself, and that gate was a 20-cubit white screen, beautifully embroidered with threads of blue, purple, and scarlet. This was the colorful, welcoming way into the sacred court.
So if you kind of step back and look at the material breakdown, you see this really clear design hierarchy. The curtains were all linen. The heavy foundational stuff like the sockets and pins, that was all bronze. But the finer details, the hooks and the decorative tops of the pillars, those were crafted from silver. Each material had its own very specific job to do.
And now we get to it, the final tally. After accounting for every single component, the text gives us the total sum of precious metals used in the entire Tabernacle project. This is the bottom line on the ledger.
First up, the gold. The total came to a whopping 29 talents and 730 shekels. Now, a talent was a unit of weight, about 75 pounds or so. A shekel was way smaller. So we are talking about over a ton of gold, an absolutely immense treasure dedicated to this project.
But then you get to the silver, and the total was even bigger, 100 talents and 1,775 shekels. That's roughly 3.75 tons of silver. So the big question is, where did all of this come from?
And the source of the silver is what's truly fascinating. It wasn't from a handful of wealthy donors. It was a community-wide census tax. Every single man aged 20 and up paid a flat tax of half a shekel, called a beka. With over 600,000 men all pitching in, this massive collective effort funded the silver foundations of the entire sanctuary.
And finally, the bronze. The total offering of this workhorse metal, the stuff used for the altar, the sockets, all the pins, it added up to 70 talents and 2,400 shekels. That's over 2.5 tons of bronze.
Let's just look at this visually for a second, because it really puts it into perspective. When you compare the totals just by the talent, which remember is a unit of weight, you can see the sheer scale. Silver was by far the most plentiful material by weight, then bronze, and then gold. It gives you a really clear picture of the project's material hierarchy.
And that brings us to the end of the accounting. It kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? Why record this level of detail? What does it say about a community? Any community, ancient or modern, when it accounts for a shared project with such meticulous care, right down to the very last shekel? It suggests that for them, every single contribution and every single component truly mattered.